So, oh, wait, she always goes to pictures. I made some this weekend.
Here, Renee. Hi, Renee.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Jake.
So you should stop right Saturday.
I'm gonna be in Kansas City.
That's going good. The antibiotic he's on didn't work. He took it to it because he had it previously. And yeah, now different
Okay,
antibiotic.
good. I'm like, well, I don't think I got
Well, I would not enjoy that whatsoever. Hey, Josh.
Well, that's not here. Denise. I assumed that Pat would be the next person to say hello to me. She's not here, so.
No, she's not real.
She's playing hooky.
She's not. She's sick.
She'd say, yeah, it's double bus.
She's okay.
You don't have to change those settings. You don't have to change it.
Just stay over.
That's fine. Well, don't fall off the backside. But comes next thing.
All right, the current time is 6:15. I will make a call to order. Pat Rottinghouse.
Rottinghouse. Absent. Fox.
Present.
Dr. Schroep.
Present.
Mack.
Here.
Berglund.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Otto.
Here.
Colheim. Absent.
Next up, we have the reading of the district mission and vision statement by Dr. Matt.
Our mission, excuse me, regardless of who you are or what your story is, you can learn and be loved here. Our vision, creating compassionate, competent problem solvers. Our operating principles, information for one is information for all. No surprises, verify facts, think ahead, disagree, explain your thinking, then commit.
Thank you, Director Matt. At this time, we have the approval of the agenda.
There are no changes. There are no changes.
I just would like to look at the consent thing. I wanted to talk about two things. So pick out C. I didn't know what E was, so take out that.
So it'll be approval with the amended agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right.
as amended.
Second.
The agenda has been approved for edits. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
At this time, we also welcome visitors for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment? Thank you for attending. There are no one for public comment. At this time, we have comments by board members and superintendent.
We'll start with our vision video. So Jose, you will pull that up for us, please. We continue to highlight some of the things that are coming around our district, especially around our mission and vision. So enjoy this one tonight.
moved here about 3 years ago, and I remember just calling the school and asking, I wanted to ask just a couple basic questions to get the kids plugged into the right programs, and by the end of the conversation, they had it set up, so we were gonna, meet people on a specific time of day when we were coming to town to look things over, and they took us to all the schools, and they helped each kid, find kind of their niche and different after-school programs as well, and in the classroom, finding their spot. And it seems like that, we've met a lot of different people who have come and gone through town, and they're always welcomed and seem to have a place for them in the community. I remember trying to do some homework with my son a couple years ago in math, and it was beyond me. Even what they're doing now is past what I did even in my college years. Back in my day, yeah, it was just, you did math because you were told to, but that problem solving aspect of it helps them too. Even if it's not a math problem, if you're geared out in the real world to figure out whatever the problem is, you're going to be better off than just being able to memorize things. They're never, just content to let things be. They're always looking ahead for, once one challenge is met, they're ready, and they step up and they're looking at what the next challenge is going to be after that. It has a whole lot to offer. There's a ton of things to do, but it's also got that small town feel for family, and everybody's very welcoming, and yeah, it's just a great place to be. It definitely feels like home.
So some updates from me as well, and I've got paper copies out to the board. Strategic Goal Hedgehog 1 engagement, and I'd emailed this out to the board previously, but just really excited about the work we're doing with work-based experience, which we call MOC, multi-occupational work, and that's where we have students out at a pilot this year earning credits while they're working. And then CAPS is another pilot we're doing, which is career-based placements for college-bound students. And so we actually are going to consider some approval of that in the future. We're working on building capacity with staffing and getting kids engaged. And because our goal is in the next 2 to 3 years to have at least 100 high school students engaged in this work, because we know that is, as you remember, Landon Luff that came and spoke to us. This is a very passionate thing for our kids, and very much our vision and mission. Joe Taylor is the district lead for this work, and Brian Jerns is leading the CAPS portion. Evan's leading the apprenticeship work we're also looking at, and I'm leading the work experiences. You can see it's a multifaceted thing. It's not just a high school thing. This has the weight of the whole district behind it. So strategic goal hedgehog number 2 is equity, and we talked about this. Pat is continuing to look at some summer opportunities to do some poverty training with the school board. We did it a couple of years ago, but I think it's a good thing with you board members. We continue to receive some training on lower social economic status students that we serve. Strategic goal hedgehog 3 exit plan. Just important for a new superintendent to have an entry plan. It's important for a departing superintendent to have an exit plan. And I've been working with the president and vice president to figure out what are some priorities the board likes me to focus on and finishing up and wrapping up. And so they'll be reaching out to the rest of the board as well to give ideas to me. And then finally, strategic goal hedgehog 4 of healthy culture. We're excited tonight to offer the retention bonuses. And it takes some hard work by, thank our associations, thank our finance director, and getting a lot of information out. But we're going to make sure that even though the state didn't provide enough money to do this, we're going to make sure every employee here, regardless of certified or classified, will receive that $1,000 retention bonus using some of our ESSER money, and that will be in front of you tonight for approval. But just thank you for all the people that helped make that a reality. So that's the update in the district.
We do not have any committee reports tonight, so we will move on to item number 7, which is public hearing. Anyone else have any comments?
I do.
Okay, perfect.
I'd like to point out how amazing the vocal contest and band and orchestra was on Saturday. It was done locally. It wasn't the state planned one, but I watched the vocal all day. Our judge happens to be here. We worked the heck out of it, didn't we? Anyway, our kids did a wonderful job, and I was really proud of them.
Yeah, I echo that. It was really, I didn't go to it, but I saw a lot of videos online. It's really interesting. They did a really nice job. And I think we actually had a stage right where we're sitting.
Yeah, they were
Oh, was it over
right
here?
there.
Yeah, it's really great that we got to use our facilities. That's awesome.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. All right, item number 6 was committee reports. We do not have any committee reports tonight. This time we move on to item number 7. Regarding a public hearing regarding the budget. Stephen will speak to that.
So I presented on that at the last board meeting, and it was in the paper the past 3 times. So this is a time for the public to speak out if they have any comments on the certified budget. I received no written comments, so does anyone want to speak in regards to the certified budget? Yes.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to speak on behalf of the certified budget? And does anyone want to speak on behalf of the certified budget?
Hearing on the public budget is closed, or the public hearing on the budget is closed. Moving on to item number 8, regarding the 2022-23 certified budget. Is there a motion to pass the public budget reflecting 13,000?
13 cents.
What? Oh. What? Oh, to approve the 22-23 certified budget as recommended in a grand total tax levy of 13 cents.
I'd make a motion to approve the 2022-23 certified budget as recommended and a grand total tax levy of 13.05537 cents. Per thousand, I believe. Is that right, Kevin?
Perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and do a roll call vote on this one.
So we have to ask for discussion.
Oh.
Discussion at this point. So you have a motion, so you have a motion in a second, then you can have a discussion.
Right, is there any discussion on the item?
The only thing I'd like to point out is that we haven't raised this in 8 years, which is very good for the school district to work to manage the resources and funding that we have. And so, I want to just thank Evan for all the hard work he's done to put this together. It's really good. He did a nice job.
Is there any other discussion? The motion has been approved and seconded. However, there will be a roll call vote as well for this item.
Fox,
Yes.
Berglund,
Yes,
Dr. Schob,
Yes.
Mac.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Moving on to item number 9, we have an auditorium update from community member Tim Mitchell. Tim, we welcome you to the board table.
Thank you very much for allowing me to update you on what we've been working on. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Tim Mitchell. I'm a Charles City native, a graduate of Charles City, class of 1983. I retired last June after 34 years of teaching high school vocal music and theater in 3 different locations in the state of Iowa. I have deep, strong ties and bonds to Charles City. I'm actually the 5th generation Mitchell to call Charles City home. And our family has a strong history of serving the community in many ways. And many of you are familiar with some of my family members who do a lot of work here with the school and with the city and with the county. For those reasons, it was easy for me to decide to come back home and make this my home when I retired. And I wanted to continue to help serve the community. And so I'm very proud to be a part of this committee that has been volunteering to make something happen for a fine arts performance center here at Charles City. This group understands that the process is daunting. We've been given an estimate of 12 to 15 million to put this together. We are very well aware of the current climate and the idea that a bond issue would take possibly a number of votes to get passed. We want to step up to the plate and try to make this happen without asking to raise taxes at all. It's a daunting task, but we're up for the challenge. We believe in this and we are going to make this happen. And so we kind of want to just inform you tonight of where we're at. The committee has been meeting every week since July to put together our facts and our ducks in a row. Because when we're going out to discuss something of this magnitude, we wanted to make sure that our concept was factually based. And so we have been doing a lot of work. We have traveled to various locations throughout the state of Iowa, to communities Charles City size, communities larger than Charles City, and even many communities smaller than Charles City. Some of those examples are Osage, Waverly, Western Dubuque, at Epworth, Independence, and Washington, Iowa. And then also schools that are much smaller than Charles City who have undertaken this type of activity. Denver, Dike, Applington, Parkersburg, Hudson, and Union all have really outstanding facilities because they found that a facility like this benefits their community as a whole. So we wanted to go and see what they had done and how they accomplished their goal. So we had some knowledge versus just throwing things out of the middle of nowhere without knowing what we were talking about. We have worked to get our 501c3 in place, and we're very thankful to Larry Pump and the Charles City Civic Foundation, who is going to serve in that capacity for us. We have done some training with Mr. Keith Christensen. Keith is the former vice president of Luther College in charge of the fundraising activities there. He raised all of their funds in the millions of dollars every year for Luther. He retired from Luther and moved to Green, Iowa, and lives in a cabin in Green, Iowa with his wife. However, he's not retired because he is now in charge of fundraising for the Mayo Clinic and raises billions of dollars a year. He's an amazing asset, and we're so thankful for his generosity to give of his time to help train us in order to be prepared to go out and ask for funds to achieve our goal. And he's been amazing. And we're very thankful to Keith for his continued support. We have also spent most of our time developing our prospectus, which I will hand out to you at the end of my presentation for you to have and for you to look over. That prospectus has a lot of documents in there, about 6 of them, that outline where we have been, the history of the auditorium, a usage report, which outlines how it's being used by the school and the community and the possibilities for its use in the future. And most importantly, a North Grand feasibility study that outlines why the North Grand facility is no longer a viable option for an effective fine arts program. And I would like to really go into more of that now with you, because that is really the focus of why we're doing what we're doing. My mom, Marlis Mitchell, was president of the school board about 40 years ago when the cosmetic renovations were done to that auditorium. And you walk into that space, boy, it was pretty then. I would say it's not as pretty now. But you have to consider, even back then, when those cosmetic renovations were done, that space was not adequate for fine arts performances. Paint can't fix the lack of space on the side of the stage or behind the space. Only building can do that, and there's no way to do that. Comfortable chairs cannot create the fly space you need in a 21st century performance facility where you can bring in set pieces, painted drops, and move them out easily so that the space can be used by other people or within the same production. A grand looking audience area doesn't fix the treacherous access to adjust the stage lighting while balancing an extension ladder on the seats of the balcony, leaning it over the open space and leaning it onto the bar so that an individual can go up there and move those lights for each production. I can't imagine doing that. And I know my brother has. 40-year-old red crushed velvet wood seats do not provide dressing, makeup, and storage space for the performers. A pretty space doesn't supply the storage area for the huge amounts of materials it takes to produce these amazing shows while the audience enjoys while sitting in the pretty house. The people of Charles City actually owe every fine arts director a huge bit of thanks because they have produced the shows they have in that space with those limitations over the years and made it seem like it was a great space. It is not. What makes it even worse now is you take that space which had all of those restrictions because of it being a 1930s building. Imagine farming with the same equipment you had in 1930. Imagine running any business with the same equipment you had in 1930. It's not possible. You can paint it, but that doesn't change its limitations. But even now, with private ownership, what we have lost is everything except the stage and the house. There is no storage. There is no space for the actors or performers to get ready and prepare. There's no space for those performers to be when they're not on stage. Fine example is the Pops concert that took place. And all of those students, when not on stage, had to take up audience seats because that cafeteria is now going to be converted into private homes, apartments. So that private ownership also limits our access time. When you're doing a musical, and I have vast experience with working in musicals, when you're doing a musical, you spend months on your set in that space, getting things ready, being there, rehearsing in that space. Now with private ownership, that is not going to be available for the school to take up 2 months of that space and have their sets sit there that whole time like it would if we weren't in private ownership. So besides all of the limitations to the space as it is, having it now under private ownership makes that even weaker. So that is why we are stepping to the plate and we are volunteering to help the school come up with a solution, because the auditorium has been a can that's been kicked down the road for far too long. And I have traveled this state and been in so many facilities and talked to so many people. And I even had a conversation with one of the adjudicators from the Iowa High School Musical Theater Association who came to the fall musical here. And I met him at another show because I also adjudicate for those. And we were talking about it. I said, well, I'm working on a committee to help raise funds so we can build an auditorium. He goes, oh, they need it. That was an embarrassment. This is an outsider. As a former alumni, I would call it an embarrassment because what we're providing for our students is not adequate. So we're willing to step to the plate. We're asking nothing from you but your support. And we just wanted to let you know where we are in the process of trying to obtain funds to build this auditorium. And so I will pass these out. And then if any of you have questions, I'm more than happy. And there are other members of the committee here who are wonderfully come in support tonight. These are yours to keep. You can look those over at that thing, all right? On your time. And are there any questions that we could maybe help answer for you in terms of the process?
I have a bunch of questions, but I'll hold if anybody else has. So the first one, I guess, is
Yeah.
Can you maybe tell us if we wanted to see updates, like, you know, when we did the when we moved the depot, we had this really cool sign that was right by the depot that showed, like, you know, the thermometer. I guess I don't know what term you want to use. That showed, like, as we got hotter, we had more money in there, so it was kind of a way for us to kind of gauge where we're at. Do you have anything like that planned?
We have not at this point. We have not asked. Actually, this afternoon, we made our first ask for donation.
Okay.
In our training, we were informed that it's wise for us to get some of those big asks done before we open it up and make a grand presentation to the community so that we can get those in place. And today was the first one that we did because we wanted to be prepared. We will get a monthly update from the Civic Foundation as to what the funds are. However, we're not going to start doing that until the end of April. since Larry Pump, who is in charge of that, is in the middle of tax season. And so we are very grateful for their support. So we are not even bothering him. We're staying away from him until that's done. And we do have donations in the fund already. But yes, I think that's a wonderful idea and we need to discuss where and how that can happen. But I think we want to wait till after we do our big rollout to the community first, and then we'll do something like that. Thank you, yes.
When is that? When is your big rollout plan?
That depends on how these first big asks go. So we have to ask those first. And once we get one or two of those in place, then that's what we'll use to roll it out.
Are you looking at a naming opportunity for someone
Yes,
who wants to
we are.
contribute a sizable portion of
Yes,
it?
we are. We are going to offer anyone who would donate $5 million the ability to name the facility.
Okay.
We also are exploring other naming rights, the stage, the lobby, seats, dressing rooms, the tech area. When we went to Washington, that was really informative. And unfortunately, they built theirs
6 or 7.
6 or 7 years ago. Their facility, about the same size, cost them $7 million. Time of our society now with inflation, it's now double basically. But they have everything named down there. Every door has a name plaque on it. I mean, they named everything. So we are going to be offering those other types of things also.
Mr. Mitchell, just to
Yeah.
clarify, you said about 700 seats, is that correct?
800 is
800.
what we're looking for here.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, and that's preliminary. We do have preliminary drawings from that I've not shared with you because they're so preliminary from the architect. And where they are looking, and it's all going to depend on how things go eventually with the high school, but they're looking to bring the entrance of the facility connected to the middle school entrance. And the back of it would go towards the southeast, towards the transportation center, so that it would be connected to the already in place restrooms for the gym. My understanding is those restrooms were built with the capacity of having an auditorium and a gym there at the same time. And to date, they've only been opened up fully a couple of times otherwise. So there is lots of space there for those restrooms. And then also possibly using the middle school entrance as part of the lobby area. So that's kind of where they're thinking of going with that, but that's also very preliminary. And those are things that are, of course, are open for discussion. And our goal is simply to get the funds to let the school take over and make it happen.
You mentioned some preliminary drawings, so you guys haven't been able to get through an architectural plan or design drawing. Oh, it's in there. Oh, thanks, Chase. Okay.
From the, we don't have an architectural drawing in there, geez.
We don't,
But-
sorry, I thought we did.
No, we don't have those in there. But from the declaration that the board made last fall, we've been given access to the school's architect. And so Justin, if you'd like to see those, Justin actually has a copy of that.
Okay.
And so you can see what it kind of looks like. It's really a stock looking facility right now. It looks like most auditoriums you would walk into. And so it's not connected to how it looks in the building or anything like that.
And then the last question, you mentioned nonprofit, so you guys are a fully nonprofit 501c3, so any contributions would be tax deductible.
Yes, completely. We wanted to make sure that was part of it because that's a big appeal to people, especially in the higher end.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you have a name specifically for it?
For the auditorium,
No, for the nonprofit, is it like?
the 501c3 is the Charles City Civic Foundation.
Great, thank you so much.
Yes, no problem. We are calling the organization Friends of Fine Arts, and we are also looking at grant opportunities. And so those, but a lot of those are ending type of deals, where once you have a building in place, you can get grants for the curtains or for some seats or something like that. But we have a grant writing committee who is working on some things there. And so we're looking to explore every opportunity we can so that we can make this happen without trying to raise taxes.
Sounds like a great project. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, any other questions? from anyone? Well, thank you, and we'll try to keep you up to date as much we can as we move on, and so thank you for your time, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Jose, Brad should be on soon. We can address electronically. Anybody in the waiting room? We must have technical difficulties,
Well,
so
we are potentially waiting for Brad from Envision Architects.
so just proceed.
We will proceed at this time. Item number 11 is regarding our COVID money update. I know this was something made prior to new board members joining the board, so Director of Finance, Evan Martin, will speak to that.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this today. Realized we got some new board members to present this last. So I just wanted to kind of go over a high level overview of our ESSER 3 plan and how much has been spent currently, with attempt to give a end of the month update, April, May, and June, of where that money is trickling out to. That's when we get you guys up to speed on the current plan. So how did the district leadership team consult with the stakeholder groups listed in Insurance 5, which was set by the governor during the development of the district ESSER 3 plan? So we met, we had a public meeting, we had a teacher task force, we welcomed public comment, and we had several committee meetings establishing the plan. So that's how we decided what we were going to do. So the funding we received was $2,508,732 in just normal ESSER 3 American Rescue Plan, which is also labeled as 4045. Out of that money for 4043, we have to allocate $627,183 to learning loss, for a total allocation of $3,135,915.
Can I ask a question?
Sir,
So are those, you add those two, so we got $2 million plus an additional $600,000, is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay, so thank you so much.
So after meeting with the committee and everything, we decided to spread it out between several different categories. So one of them would be the innovative campus. So we have administrators, we have teachers over there, and they're doing a lot of online learning. So we allocated $1 million over to the innovative campus to cover salaries, curriculum, and supplies they may need. We're constantly relooking at this number just to see where it's going to be going, because we have till June 2024 to spend this money out as of today. We also allocated some of the campus discretionary, so we took $1 million and divided it by grade level and gave it to the campuses. So those building administrators can use that as they see fit, and that's required by law. We said some to operations that tied to our strategic plan. So some of the work that's been over there is we're in the new playground at Lincoln was part of our COVID plan. We get some cement work done. We have some utilities that we had to do for the North Korean project, door handles for Lincoln and Washington, bus cameras, central services office space. And then we left some money there for discretionary because in the world of inflation, things go up and we just want to be prepared for that. So then we had an overall district discretionary. So we had curriculum reserves, professional development reserves, COVID and recruitment work days, medical training, and any unknown or unforeseen pandemic related impacts. As we know, in the world of COVID, things are constantly changing. So we just want to make sure we had money there in case a new finding or something had to be purchased. With that being said, to date, out of ESSER 3, we have spent $205,122.81 out of our 4045, which doesn't have to be learning loss. And we spent $143,257.99 out of learning loss, for a grand total of $348,380.80. So I just want to give you guys a rough estimate of what our current plan was, with more updates to come in the future. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to.
So we have the remaining balance, $2.7 million.
Yep.
And the plan is essentially what you've laid out here to spend it on, right?
Correct.
Okay. And we have until June of 2024.
As of today.
As of today. Do we, I know that they did an automatic extension for anyone who wanted to. Did we apply for it or just get the extension?
We got the extension. So it was originally September 23 and up to June.
And all of these planned expenditures have gone through whatever federal requirements are to validate that they're expenses that can be used.
So we approved the plan as a board. As we see things that fit these categories, we bring it back to the board to approve out the COVID money after I apply to the state. make sure it's legal and ethical.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you so much.
Where we're a little slow on expending has been the innovative campus. Larry Wolf is obviously the administrator there, and one thing he's incredible at, he's very frugal. We gave him $1 million to fund that, and he actually has been funding it, most of it through dropout prevention. So very little of the $1 million he's allotted is really going to, it's mostly just for equipment and resources like the curriculum we bought with Odyssey, but there's very little staffing that's being paid out of that. So that's going to be a balance that we're going to have to wrestle with in a positive way, that we may not need that money. And we're not replacing the administrator because he got that up and running. And we looked at replacing the administrator, found that we didn't need to. And so I think there's going to be a balance there. We'll have to figure out what to do out in the future. The campus discretionary, that was one we were really proud of, being a distributed leadership organization. We took basically a third of this money and distribute it out to the campuses. And yes, the administrators, I guess, have the final say, but it's expected to be collaborative. It's expected to be working with teachers, working with staff, working with our leadership at each campus to figure that out, what is best. And like I said, this is the time to dream big. If you have a curriculum or something we're trying to do in learning loss, this is the time to do that. They've been very frugal. They have not been spending that down. So we've been having some conversations of, we need to get moving on that. And I know several of them have larger plans. Like the high school has a large plan really tied to a lot of the caps and the work experience that we're doing. So that's a piece. Operations has been, it's pretty much all planned out. And then of course the discretionary, some of the discretionary obviously is going back into like the retention bonuses we're doing. And we've been doing some extra duty pay for teachers as well. So that's taking care of that. The one thing we have not done, we are not paying for ongoing costs of this money. I know of several of my colleagues that have used this to hire teachers or, supplant salaries. And one of the first rules I ever learned in leadership was you don't pay for ongoing costs with one-time money because it gets you a financial cliff. So we have really avoided that because I just don't think that's wise. So yeah, it's a good problem to have right now. We still have quite a balance. We've got to keep working through.
Any other questions? From Brad.
Is he coming in yet? All right, well, we'll keep an eye out for him. So.
On to item number 12, our financial report from February 2022.
Yeah, I just want to highlight a couple things. So as of February, or the end of February 2022, we've spent 50% of our budget. So we are way under budget as we speak right now. We've received 52% of our revenue has been received, and we are about 800, to put in perspective, we're about $800,000 less expenditures compared to where we were at this time last year. So that's something I wanted to
Say that more than 800,000.
less in expenditures than we were at this point last year.
Much of that has to do with ESSER money.
Right.
There's, for example, if we have a budget item we're going to purchase normally with our normal operational budget, we're obviously using, ESSER money to do that. So that's created these balances. So.
Any other questions related to the financial report from February 2022? Is there a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to accept February 2022 financial reports as presented.
A second.
Motion has been moved and seconded.
Yes.
All in favor of the motion to accept the February 2022 financial reports as presented, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say. Motion has been approved. Moving forward, item number 13 is in relationship to our retention incentive bonus.
So we'll have in front of you tonight this retention bonus, which this has been it's been confusing at times. It's something we have looked at over the past year on how to do with our lawyers, getting some of our ESSER money to our employees to really benefit them from all the extra hours and things they've had to put in the last 2 years, really, well, 2.5 years, going back to the beginning of the pandemic. And then the governor announced that they would be providing some state money to do retention bonuses for certified teachers. But then we found out it was very, very narrow. Like there were some certified staff that would be excluded from this. incentive bonus. So we put our heads together and talked with leadership and decided to, and many school districts are doing that, backfill that with some of our ESSER money out of our reserve money from ESSER to make sure every employee here, classified and certified, would receive this retention bonus. Now, to follow the letter of the law, it is, again, it's not like a hazard pay bonus or anything like that. It's a retention bonus for returning employees to honor them to stay on the job, because we've had such teacher shortages, staff shortage all across the state, and we're not immune to that in our district too. So you have the resolution in front of you, and then Evan, anything else you want to add? Some clarification.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to make clear, and I was talking to Superintendent Fisher about it, is on May 1st, we have what's called the School Budget Review Committee is holding a hearing where schools can go to this hearing and ask for $1,000 for the people who weren't included. Currently, myself and a bunch of colleagues are gathering our thoughts and plan on appearing at the SBRC with the intent to receive this money back to be more equitable for all of our employees and not just one specific group. So I'm going to make you guys aware that I will try to go to battle for that, but I have no guarantees, but I'd still like to take them out.
How much would you ask for?
$150,000 to $160,000.
So just so I understand, I mean, I'm fully supportive of what the governor's done and her support with our teachers, which is fantastic. Are we getting clarification from our attorney that this is legal and okay to do?
This resolution came directly from our attorney.
Great.
Yeah, they actually wrote it for us.
Excellent.
So,
Okay,
yes.
so they support it, I assume, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's make it sure.
They support us as long as it's not illegal. That's their big piece.
Right, yeah.
And there's a lot of debate on that, on how you can do that, because early on, so one of the things we have been trying to help our teachers putting extra hours in. So last year we offered $750 of additional hours they could file for ESSER money. And most of our staff obviously took advantage of that. We've also done that again this year as well. But again, they had to be able to demonstrate the extra hours they're putting in. But this is a place where it's really just as long as you're returning as an employee, you'll be eligible for. So again, to clarify from Evan, we're going to pay for every staff member, full-time or part-time. It doesn't matter. We'll get $1,000 retention bonus based on this. And again, what Evan was alluding to is we're going to use ESSER money to backfill it. There is a chance we could request from the state additional allowable authority to use that as well. And what that would do is basically just save some of our ESSER money, because we are having to dip into our ESSER, what we call our reserves. We had $400,000 of ESSER money that we considered contingency, and really we're going to eat all that up. So we try to keep a little contingency in there because inflation and things that happen, but if needed, we'll just cover it with that contingency money.
And this is for all employees, so part-time coaches, everybody.
It would be for, not for like activity athletic coaches, it'd be for teachers, classified staff, paras, custodians, bus drivers. But no, it wouldn't affect like if you were part-time, like junior high coach. That wouldn't be that.
And then do they have to do anything to get this money, fill out a form, sign a document, or is it just automatically put in their check-in, mayor?
So for the governor's portion, all the teachers have certified that they plan on finishing out their contract this year. So we had a form that we got in for that. I had to verify all the licenses, submit that to the state. For the remainder of the employees, we're going to do is essentially a similar thing. With that.
Okay, great, thank you.
And that's going to be based off signed contracts in the resolution. So if they don't get their contract back to us, they just essentially won't get it.
So is there a motion on this one?
Well, first, I will read through the resolution so everyone is aware of what we are making a motion to. All right, whereas the Board of Directors of the Charles City Community School District recognizes that many school districts across the state are experiencing staffing shortages during the 2021-2022 school year due in large part to the pandemic and its residual effects, and that staffing shortages have also impacted the operations of the Charles City Community School District. And whereas the Board of Directors of the Charles City Community School District anticipates that said staffing issues will continue into the 2022-2023 school year and will make hiring and retention for next year increasingly challenging. Whereas the Board of Directors of the Charles City Community School District believes maintaining adequate staffing levels of all positions is essential to its educational mission, and that when positions go unfilled, it is detrimental to all students as well as other personnel. And whereas the Charles City Community School District believes that in light of staffing shortages and the coinciding impact upon district operations, it is appropriate to provide a retention incentive to staff to remain employed with the district for the 2022-23 school year and to timely sign contracts for same. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Charles City Community School District that the board hereby authorizes the superintendent to facilitate a one-time retention incentive payment in the amount of $1,000 to classified staff who sign contracts with the district no later than May 25th, 2022, to remain employed with the district through the 2022-23 school year. Number two, the board hereby further authorizes the superintendent to facilitate a one-time retention incentive payment in the amount of $1,000 to certified teaching staff who were not eligible for the governor's retention incentive and who have agreed to fulfill the remainder of their contract. Number three, the board hereby further authorizes the superintendent to facilitate a one-time retention incentive payment in the amount of $1,000 to directors, administrators, administrative support, and any other staff who do not fall under a unionized group. In the event a certified teacher, director, administrator, administrative support, and any other staff who do not fall under a unionized group were to terminate their contract prior to June 30th, 2022, they will be obligated to return the funds to the district. In the event a classified staff were to terminate their contract prior to June 20th, 2023, they will be obligated to return the funds to the district. Is there a motion to pass the item as presented? Motion has been moved and seconded. This time we will do a roll call vote.
Fox,
Yes,
Dr. Stroh,
Yes.
Berglund,
Yes,
Mac.
Yes.
motion has been approved 4-0. All right, moving forward, item 14 with regards to conference alignment. This is some discussion from Superintendent Fisher.
Yes, and I'll answer any questions the board might have. This has been an ongoing piece for us, so a little historical context. It's been around 2 years ago that we had a major sportsmanship that was a very public thing happen with partner school. And at that time, it really opened up some discussions within the conference schools about sportsmanship in the Northeast Iowa Conference. Oline left the conference that year and did cite many of the sportsmanship issues as a concern. And so that continued to be an issue. At the time, we also then convened a task force for us to evaluate what our community, so I have broad community task force, students, parents, coaches, come in and work with the outside facilitator to make some recommendations on how we wanted to respond in the future of the conference. The recommendation of that task force at the time was to either start a new conference or to look at joining a new conference. Under the board direction, I explored starting a new conference with partner schools and got an interesting response. I found several schools that were interested in joining a new conference that would be basically the NEIC -1 school. And as long as that one school is not a part of it, they would agree to join. And then but what we ran into were some issues of the NEIC schools, specifically some of the northern schools that said they were not interested in joining this new conference, which created an issue. You know, I think we could have forced it at the time. I told the board, I think we could have forced the issue and just said, we're going to start this new conference and we'll just, hope every people join, but that was risky. And then what the board needs to know is school districts can actually appeal to the Iowa High School Athletic Association and the Girls Union to basically force their way into a conference. So at the time, there was a concern that if we tried to move forward without one of these partner schools, they may actually just appeal and try to join the conference anyway. So it'd be kind of silly that we start a conference to subtract a school and then push their way back in. So that ended up not coming to fruition. And so in the meantime, last 2 years, I've been having private conversations with other conferences, 2 conferences specifically, about possible inclusion. They have not been ready for that at this time, but we think they could be a good fit. So that's been something that's been happening privately. If that would come to a bigger, more productive conversations, obviously I'd bring that to the board, but it's been all casual conversations right now. And this particular conference which would make a lot of sense. It's the same amount of travel, similar size schools, and about same competitiveness of what we're doing, very much more competitive in terms of size of the schools. Been talking to them, for the last 2 years about possible inclusion. What has happened now in the past few weeks was a discussion by New Hampton specifically, and we've been partnering with New Hampton in these discussions as well. New Hampton has pushed the issue even farther in that they are now have an invitation from the Upper Iowa Conference to possibly join their conference, and there's been 2 other invitations extended to other NEIC schools. And now New Hampton has notified us and officially to the schools of the NEIC conference, they have made a request that we meet as a school, as the conference, and consider the idea of having Waverly Shell Rock removed from the conference. Now, the conference bylaws do allow for this. It would take a majority plus 1 or a majority vote, which would be 4 of the 6 conferences would have to vote on that. The way this process would work is we would have a meeting of the superintendents of the NEIC. And basically the motion would be made in what's known as the NEIC, the Conference Executive Committee. And then what we do is then if the resolution moves forward, it doesn't pass, it just moves into the next phase where then we go back to our individual school boards, and the school boards would then have to pass a resolution directing the superintendents how to vote on this. Then we would convene back again, and then we would take that vote, and that would is how the bylaws would work for removal of a school from the conference. It's the same type of process if you want to add a school to the conference as well. The meetings have not been scheduled. There's still a discussion happening, but I expect those to happen in the next few weeks. So we'll just see what happens. I do believe, in my opinion, that if Waverly Shell Rock does leave, you'll see other schools join the NEIC. And in the event that the vote fails and we see 3 schools leave the NEIC, we do have contingency plans. We will have a conference. We'll have a conference that we'll be involved in. We have contingencies for that as well. So at this point, we're really not driving this, being driven by New Hampton at this point, and we're just staying in tune to it and just planning for all contingencies. So that's the long and short of it, and those entertaining questions you might have.
Just a couple, Mike. The NEIC is the smallest conference that's around our school, I believe.
Yes, I believe. We're 6, we were 7, and so I believe, yes, we'd be the smallest, in the contiguous area, yes.
There's the other ones are somewhere between 9 and 18 schools.
What you're seeing is, so we're an odd sized district, in fact, that, most districts in Iowa anymore are pretty, very large, or they're, very, very small, and we're one of those medium sized districts. So yes, our conference basically has a whole Northeast Iowa corner of similar sized districts of, 1,000 and bigger, anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 kids.
Mhm. What would be the reason, what is Waverly Shell Rock want to do?
I don't know that they know yet. I mean, I think I don't speak for Waverly Shell Rock, but in past conversations, I think they would just prefer that the conference stay as it is, and we just keep doing what we've been doing. But obviously, New Hampton has pushed that issue that they want to see something happen.
Based on what you just talked about, or some other reason, Waverly Shell Rock's bigger than us, is there?
Well, I can't. They are bigger than us. They're probably about 500 to 600 kids bigger than us. The issue that's been cited by New Hampton is competitiveness and size, because New Hampton is under 1,000 kids. They're a small school district in their conference, say somewhere between 900 and 1,000. And obviously they have 900 kids versus Waverly Shell Rock's 2,200.
I really think that our district or conference would grow.
I do based on the conversations I've had with other superintendents.
With schools that are about our size.
Roughly. One school district I talked to was 1,000, like just above 1,000. One school district I talked to would be about 1,200. There was one that was much smaller. It was more like 500-600 kids, but they want to be in a more competitive conference. I don't feel like their current conference is competitive, and they're not prepared for state events when they go.
What do we need to do with this now?
There's really nothing we need to do. We need to wait for the meeting to get called. The chair of the NEIC conference this year is actually the Waverly superintendent, so he has to call the meeting, and that meeting hasn't been called yet. So, we'll just wait and see. And this, I think I got the email last Thursday. So this is whenever I emailed the board. It was sometime last week. So I know there was just some surprise amongst some superintendents, so they were kind of regrouping and figuring out what next steps were. We were actually one of the more prepared because we've been discussing this for over 2 years, and like I said, we have multiple contingency plans.
He doesn't call the meeting because that just kind of died.
No, I mean, the meeting could be called, it's just more just organization of it, but, and we have a regularly scheduled meeting coming up in a week or two anyway, but I think the plan was to have a meeting before that, so, because this obviously takes 2 meetings, and then with us getting back to our boards, and on top of that, I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe New Hampton has a deadline, I believe of June 1st to let the Upper Iowa know if they're going to join that conference, so they want to see if this happens, then they might, that'll affect their decision if they want to join the Upper Iowa Conference.
There was somewhere 3 of our schools were asked to join, so.
My understanding is invitation was sent to Cresco, Waukon, and New Hampton. But again, the key message, I don't want anybody to panic. We will have a conference. We will either, the NEIC will go on in a new form with new members, or we will, the NEIC, if those 3 schools were left, leave, obviously the NEIC would not be in existence anymore. You can't have a conference with 3. But again, we have 2 different options that we would explore for conferences we've been looking at for 2 years now.
Any other questions? All right, moving on to item number 15, our consideration of consent, the amended consent agenda. We did pull items C and E. Director Schroeder, did you have any, I guess, first, is there a motion to approve the amended consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
Motion has been approved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no. All right, item C has been pulled. Approval of personnel appointments. Director Schroeder, do you have any questions?
Yeah,
regarding that?
this teacher leader and compensation thing, I had not heard of that before, and I wanted some kind of history on that. Apparently it was started in 2016-17 school year, so it was after my kids graduated. I don't know if we would have known about it if they hadn't, and prior to me being on the school board. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with it. So what was the purpose of this? Where did it come from? Where did the money come from?
So the Teacher Leadership and Compensation Grant was developed by Director Ryan Wise out of the Department of Education. Go back to that. Even goes back farther than that. They piloted it, I believe, at Sadell and somewhere else. It was innovative compensation for teachers at the time. I think this could go back even around 2010, where the first conversations happened. It was implemented in waves, and so what you did, all schools had to apply to participate in the grant, and then eventually it wasn't a grant; it just is actually written into the Iowa funding formula. So we get so much, and I can't quote the exact number, but we get so much money per student we have that specifically has to go towards teacher leadership in the schools. We have a large grant that's been written that has to be approved by the Iowa Department of Education by a team of teachers. And periodically this has to be updated and reviewed, and it hadn't been reviewed in 4 or 5 years. And we got feedback from a large group of teachers throughout the district, because again, the idea of this, it's teacher leaders that serve teachers. And it could be anything from a stipend where like a mentoring teacher is helping a new teacher, or a cooperating teacher helping a student teacher, to things such as we're doing here. These are full release positions. So these are still teachers on teacher contract, but they don't teach in the classroom. They are fully working on teacher leadership issues where they're helping other teachers. And so that's what's here. So this task force came together here this spring to review the positions, because we got a lot of feedback from our classroom teachers of, well, we think TLC needs to be reviewed. We're not sure it's quite giving us what we need. And so based on that, we made some adjustments, with this, but this money comes directly from the state through the Iowa funding formula. And so what you see, these are stipends. So all of the people in these positions, just receive their normal teacher contract with their normal teacher pay based on their step and lane. And then this is the additional money they receive to participate in these positions. Obviously not the associate director of finance, that's something different. That's just a
That's
routine
something.
piece, yes.
So the ones that are called coaches are teachers
Mhm.
that are helping other teachers.
And that's exactly what they do. They go into classrooms and help coach teachers. So they go in and they are trained in providing additional, advice and practice. And I mean, it's very broad what they do. And we can bring some of them in and do a presentation at some point, but anything from as simple as subbing for a teacher so they can go to a conference or go shadow another teacher, to doing what's called coaching cycles, where a coach will go with them and come into the classroom once a week and give feedback and sit down and do reflective questioning. It's non-evaluative, so they are not administrators. They don't do any evaluation. It's purely a peer coaching system that is designed to assist student achievement.
They don't have themselves teaching responsibilities.
They do not. Yeah, they're full release. So they have offices and they're expected to, work directly with teachers every day. Some do have some teaching responsibilities. Some are doing intervention groups or help out in small ways, but they are in the classrooms regularly. They do sub sometimes and do different things. So they do a little bit of everything.
The one that's a lead teacher, the WE lead teacher,
Yes.
what does that stand for?
So the lead teacher is a model we've taken from other school districts have done this, and it's almost like a dean of students. They're able to help they still do coaching. They'll go in and do walkthroughs and go coaching for teachers, but they're also able to help out with management, like student discipline. They can evaluate non-certified personnel. They can't evaluate teachers or anything like that. So it's not an administrator, but a step down from that, but it absolutely does help with the management. So the idea here is the lead teacher, and because the idea of being like a head teacher is that they can take some of the duties off the principal, so the principal can do more of the things they need to do, like teacher evaluations and things that the lead teacher can't do. This is something new. Washington's very large. It has 4 grade levels, and obviously we do not have money to hire another administrator, but this was a way we could innovatively find to get some additional support over there with the 4 grade levels.
So this money here is not money that we have to come up with. That comes.
No, it comes from the state. It for every kid we have, it's and we can get that number for you. It's so many dollars we get in the funding formula. So it's generated based on head count.
We pay their teacher salary part comes from us, but this part comes. From
Well, and actually in this case, the teacher salary, all of their teacher salary and the stipends comes out of the TLC of money. So it actually does save our general fund.
Okay, that's.
Yep.
So WE just stands for Washington.
Washington Elementary. Yes, sir.
All right. This is just something new.
We'll
We can revisit that.
yeah, I'll write down a TLC
I'll
presentation in the
be
future.
seeing Marcia tomorrow morning, so I can. talk to her.
Yeah. She was one of the original grant writers when they wrote the grant in
Yeah,
16 or 15 or 16.
Then the associate director of finance, what do we need there?
So that's 54 days of proration. Our contracts go July 1 to June 30th. So we had a resignation in my office in February. So we've been trying to fill that position, and we finally made an offer. Pending his approval.
So this is a current position, which is it's just a filling a vacant position that we already had, which we really need because we're shorthanded in office right now. They're very busy. So
Yeah. Thank you for the explanation. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Is there a recommendation by the superintendent for approval of personnel?
yes, there's a recommendation by the superintendent for approval of the item C, approval of personnel appointments as presented.
Very well.
I'll make a motion to approve them as presented.
Second.
Motion has been approved and seconded for the approval of the personnel appointments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is passed. For all those opposed? Okay. All right, then we also had pulled item E, education hall invoice. Dr. DeGroote, did you have any questions? on that?
Didn't know, I read that thing and I just didn't know what education plus education hall invoice was.
Yeah, it actually ties back into TLC. So our instructional coaches have built a relationship with a man named Pete Hall. He's an education consultant. He's a very sharp guy. He's come in and done one-on-one training with our coaches on how to make them better coaches at coaching teachers. But then he also does some one-on-one work with teachers as well. And so this is for a full day workshop. We've done this several years. He's been a great partner with our district. I believe too, this money would actually be paid out. Was it out of TLC?
It's out TLC.
So this was actually, it's a TLC function. So we're able to pay for some teacher leadership things like this out of the TLC money. So, yep, this is just our continuing work with Pete Hall.
That's all I wanted
Any
to
other
do.
questions regarding Education Hall? Is there a
There's
recommendation
a
by the superintendent?
recommendation by the superintendent to approve the education hall invoice item E as presented.
I make the motion.
Motion has been approved and seconded to support the educational hall invoice. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. All right, next on our list is correspondence / miscellaneous. I won't read through the whole letter. This was a letter presented to Board President Pat Roddinghouse from Tammy Draba. She is the president,
She's a board development director.
Board Development Director of the Iowa School Board Association. The school board, the Charles City School Board met on January 27th as a all-day retreat, and the letter summarizes our discussion, highlights, goals, and division. Again, I'm not going to read it, but it is available on. We never did hear from.
We didn't, so I will text him when I get out and, but we'll invite him back next time. It's
All
okay.
right.
Guess we
And
get
that
out a little
gives us
early tonight.
two
so.
Big ideas. Any big ideas from any board members?
Sounds like you got a project going with some community members to try to raise some money for a new auditorium.
It's a big idea,
It's a big idea, yeah.
a very big idea, and we are determined.
Thank you for that. Meeting so diligently, weekly meeting. Thank you, board members, for your patience as I work
You did
through leading
fine.
this meeting.
You did a good job. You did great. I will say one big idea I'd like to share too is that the teacher retention bonus is going to all employees. Part-time or full-time will be $1,000. So I know that's gonna come up. Oh, gosh, I'm a part-time employee, like, they get $1,000 as well.
And that kind of extends to, we want to thank all of our teachers, staff for everything that they've done. So they deserve it. They deserve more, but we will. start with the possible. Anything else? Okay, important upcoming dates. April 1st, we have our spring play. Speaking of out-of-town experiences.
It's also on the 2nd, I think at 2 in the afternoon,
Okay.
because they're using the Charles Theater. There's a movie at night.
Okay.
So that's, and tomorrow night, you have to already have your tickets, but the jazz performance is out at the fairgrounds. That's great.
It's 12 Angry Men this year, isn't it? What?
That is 12 Angry Jurors.
12 Angry Jurors, yeah, I thought it was men, yeah, it's a little bit of everything, so.
Which sounds a little weird, but that's what it's called.
So Denise, that will be at the North Grand Auditorium or the Charles?
No, Charles Theater.
That's I guess, a little different. All right, and then April 11th, we have our board meeting at 6:15 in the high school library. It is 7:20 on the dot. The meeting is adjourned.
All right, I know you're broken hearted, but this is an agenda item.